Hello and welcome to the Future Report. We're here today on April 5th, 2024.
We're a little late.
Just a little late.
Just a little late.
Let me just start this off with the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite. There are some tests that were done recently using Geekbench 6, the later form of Geekbench. It's actually performing a lot better than the Core Ultras. Those
15th
are like
generation pre-production samples, I guess.
whatever it is. It's the Core Ultra 7, I think 155H.
155H.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Is H? I'm looking what
I know it was H. I know it ended in H.
I'm looking up.
Let me see.
You know it's bad
right
when the tech influencer has to look up what your brand is even meaning.
Yeah, 155H. I did get it right. So the Core Ultra 155H and the Core Ultra 9 155H. Okay. So
they're laptop CPUs. That's why I knew there was that. Okay, that clears
so
it up.
the Snapdragon, the X Elite, is it performs significantly faster with a much less power draw, so a higher power efficiency. When we tested it, when it was tested against the so the Snapdragon X Elite was tested against the Core Ultra 7 155H. We saw a score that was 54% higher, and it was 65% more power efficient. And then the same test was done on Geekbench 6. It was done beating the Core Ultra 9 by 36% and having a higher power efficiency at 50%. So,
do we know how many cores this thing has? Because that's really, like, in my mind, that's the difference between your Ultra 9 and this. There would still be a reason to at least buy the 9 if it has something like 3 times the cores, but 36% performance kind of speaks volumes to what Intel's been doing in the laptop game.
Yeah.
So definitely not
12 cores.
12 cores.
The X Elite has 12 cores.
So, I mean, what my first thought was when this thing was announced and we were kind of looking over it was that it's ARM. That's kind of its biggest problem.
The Core Ultra 7 has a 16 core. So,
interesting.
Yep.
But like I was saying, I mean, because it's ARM, many people won't even get this kind of performance in the real world because most programs are not ARM at all. Windows ARM isn't even, as far as I know, Windows ARM isn't even fully
Microsoft is actually working with Qualcomm specifically right now, or Snapdragon, whichever.
Yeah, Qualcomm. You have it.
They're working with Qualcomm right now to make it applicable to pretty much every software.
Okay.
They're working very closely together.
So they're going to do basically what Apple did with Rosetta Stone, where you can just open an application that was built for an Intel-based Mac on an M1 and it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're using Guru 3D for this information, just to let you all know.
Yep. Good. That's very interesting. I mean, I think we've been at a point where it's been stagnant. Like, we've kind of stagnated in the laptop market for battery life, for sure. I think that's one thing that I've wanted to see increase for a long time.
Yeah.
I kind of have managed to get the laptops that I currently own to last a pretty long time, but I noticed the loss in performance. So having something like this that does both and does it really well is a nice change of pace.
So the interesting thing is Intel is surprisingly good at single core performance. Or wait, is that AMD?
I think it's Intel. I thought
Intel is usually better in single thread, but shown in these Geekbench results.
Are these images, by the way, just in case I want to?
So I have images. Up. Yes, I can give you the images.
Okay, so for those of you on YouTube, like always, these will be displayed up on screen.
Yeah, there's actually a graph. It says the Snapdragon X Elite best-in-class CPU against the Core Ultra 7 155H. The Snapdragon is at the 65% mark, and it is at the 54% higher efficiency. So 65% higher performance, 54% higher efficiency.
And for clarification, that's on single core, right?
This is on single core. That's what I'm
So
getting
they're beating Intel by a sizable margin.
Yeah, and then
using
on
next to no
multi-core,
power.
there's 60% higher performance and 52% higher power efficiency.
So basically, this is game changing. If the scores,
Oh, wait a second. I got that
you got it mixed up.
backwards. 60% higher power efficiency, 52% higher
Okay.
performance.
So it's still game changing.
Yeah, it is, because it's still it is twice as good.
So then what
It's
that like makes me wonder is like this is just essentially the horsepower of the chip. But Intel has these technologies, these proprietary technologies that they have on their chips for AI, for video upscaling. That makes me wonder, like when this thing comes out, sure, for sheer productivity it might be great, but for an average user, I would hope at least that this is something that brings a well-rounded competitive experience instead of just you know, higher raw performance.
Yeah, we want to see good gaming performance as well as 3D modeling performance.
And that's the thing
that
too. Yeah, what GPU does this thing even come with? Like, what are we gonna get on a laptop that'll
Yeah,
compete with?
that is a part of this. It's a part of this.
Oh, it's
benchmark.
documented. Do we
Yeah.
know what
So-
it is?
I'm just gonna read right off of here. I'm quoting Guru 3D. Qualcomm's processor surpassed Intel's Core 7 155H graphics by 36% in another benchmark test called 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme.
Okay.
And here also, the percent or the higher efficiency was by 50% as well. So it's still like.
So it seems to be across the board. Qualcomm has taken the.
Well,
win here.
we knew. Let's just completely take power efficiency out of the equation because we knew that. Intel is extremely inefficient when it comes to power, but usually, this is what gets me, is usually they have a higher performance.
just
But
across
in this,
the board.
yeah, usually across the board they have a higher performance than competitors. But this time, the Qualcomm has a higher performance and a much higher power efficiency.
And we're not finding major drawbacks too. So far.
So far, I read this whole article and I haven't seen any drawbacks at all, except that it's ARM. And another quote right from Guru 3D: Qualcomm is working closely with Microsoft to ensure that ARM systems like those powered by the Snapdragon X Elite work seamlessly with Windows.
Now that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Because one major problem, even with things like handhelds, like the A Neo, other handhelds. I know that there's a lot of them. I don't know the manufacturers. There's the ROG. The ROG Ally is another very popular
the
one.
handheld one.
But the major complaint from people who are like active users of those types of platforms is that while Windows works great most of the time, certain features make it terrible for like initial setup or information input because it's still a computer, despite it having a handheld form factor. So seeing them working closely with Microsoft to make sure that this is something that Microsoft is aware of and is actively supporting and developing, like making changes to support, might mean a brighter future for handhelds coming soon that run Windows, because it'll feel more like an integrated experience than a PC with worse input devices. That's really interesting.
Yep.
So if you want to take the next one as well.
Yeah, I'll hop right into the next topic. So our next topic is the Game Ready Technology Custom Builds. We have a whole page on our website at GameReadyTech.com. We have a page that is just free consultations. We consult for like 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what time space we have. You can schedule an appointment right through the website, and we will get you hooked up with something, whether it's set you up with exactly what you need, or if we can figure out just initial things like what's your occupation, what things you're looking for, and what price range you're working with, and we can get you something to work with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and moving on, we have a relatively, you could call it groundbreaking, but this is more of like evening the playing field. This is for Android users who are using, obviously, Google's services, so that some of you are not, but this will apply to the majority. It's the Find My Device network. So this is something that was announced about a year and a half ago from Google. It's the equivalent to Apple's Find My Device system, and it'll apply to your phone, Bluetooth accessories, headphones, earbuds, anything that can be used for tracking. So this will also apply to your tracking chips like the Tile, Chipolo, Pebble Bee, common accessories like that. The idea is to make it so that way it will work when your device is not connected to any kind of network, very similar to how Apple has handled finding your local devices for years
and the
now.
AirTags.
Yeah. So the reason that this wasn't released earlier is because Android users expressed many concerns kind of related to security and personal safety when Apple released the AirTag in 2021. Obviously, we know from what kind of conspired then, we had all of the people using them as tracking devices, people using them for stalking.
Yeah, putting them in cars.
Yeah, exactly. In cars, in bags. I've seen there was one where someone put it into someone else's pocket inside of a notebook. There's so many different things that they were used for. So obviously there were concerns about making everybody have this because it just seems like a massive security risk. So Google,
and now there's even a thing you can get an alert, and if AirPods or something else is following you around for a while, it actually makes a noise, and your phone will alert you that someone's been following you. Or something like an accessory has been following you.
And that's something that went back when this happened. I said myself, like I'm quoting myself here, I guess, that I couldn't believe that they would make a feature that, not intrusive, but like a feature that is so directly linked to the live location of a device without taking into account the fact that that would be the first thing people would use it for.
Exactly.
Would be some sort of predatory, harmful, use of finding or tracking somebody, because the second that they enabled tracking on social media, that immediately became a massive problem where people were using other people's Instagrams to figure out their habits in daily life. Now you have devices that only report back to the owner where they are, and you can just, they're the size of a large coin. So that was my concern, and I guess I'm not alone here. So this is a very rare collaboration. Google and Apple notoriously have had issues for years, but they're collaborating on this one to ensure that
they should be. This is such a huge health risk and for everyone.
It's the one time that I'm actually I guess I'm not surprised that they're collaborating, because this is Apple's forte. This is kind of their bread and butter, and then obviously Google's security has always been kind of not like a gray area, but it's definitely not taken as seriously as Apple's security these days. So it's good that they're actually taking notes from a company that's been doing it pretty well for as long as most of us can remember.
It's also a two-sided thing. They just can't say, hey, I'm just going to start tracking your AirTags and stuff and all your accessories on our network. They can't just say that.
Well, of course.
They have to work
But
together.
it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to track Apple devices. It could also just apply to any generic device.
Yeah.
So they
any
could have
Bluetooth device.
They could have just left Apple out of it completely, theoretically, but I think that it's much better that it was done this way.
Yeah, I think that kind of would defeat the purpose a little bit, though, if they just left Apple accessories out of it, because the AirTag has been a huge way of making that happen.
And now the thing that's great is that I can't confirm this, but we will see very soon. So it is set to come out either Sunday the 7th, so that's in 2 days, or the following Monday the 8th. So that's when it's going to go live. So if you see changes on your smartphone or it starts alerting you of things, Sunday or Monday is the expected date. I'm going to have to try and
test that out and
see
what
the thing that the thing that I'm trying to figure out is whether or not it will work on pre-existing devices. I have a feeling it will, but I'm not quite sure yet.
It would have to.
It would have to. But
yeah, that would have to.
Yeah, because I was seeing some articles that were talking about the devices that are out right now. So I assume that it's just going to retroactively change all of the things. Retrospectively, I guess would also be a word you could use. Change the standard that all the devices are using for location.
You got it right the first time. Retroactive.
Retroactive? Oh, I tried.
Retrospective would be like looking in the past. Like seeing what you did in the past.
I tried. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the basics of it. It's really nice to see some industry standardization, especially from Apple. That's something that's a little bit out of character for them, unless their hand is completely forced. So it's good to see that they actually, to an extent, care about the average person, Even if it means that it's somebody who might not be invested in their ecosystem, it's a very nice change to see. So I got to give them points there.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Now, speaking of people who don't like to team up with others, we've got Intel, who over the last fiscal year of 2023 had a $7 billion loss in their, what do you call that?
Fiscal year?
No, $7 billion expense. Like they spent more than they made.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
love a
the
word in
process
business,
losses. I forget. There's so many different
$7
words.
billion deficit? Deficit's the word you're looking
No,
for?
there's a word for it, and I'm going to find it before I continue.
Smart move, because I'm also tired.
Let's see.
Are you looking? Is
I'm
revenue
almost there.
the word?
Nope, revenue's different. Operating losses.
There you go.
There we go. Operating losses amounting to $7 billion. It increased, so the year before, the fiscal year of 2022, had a $5.2 billion loss, but it increased to $7 billion loss this year.
Yeah, what's another $2 billion?
Not only... Yeah, what's another $2 billion?
Hey.
Not only that, but they had a 31% decrease in revenue from they were making $27.5 billion. Now their revenue is 18.9.
So that's 2022's revenue of 27, and then
So 2022 was
18.9.
27.5 billion.
Yeah.
2023 was 18.9. So they had a 31% decrease in revenue. So yeah, that's the initial negative. Now let's go a little bit deeper. The CEO, I don't know how to pronounce that name. It's like Gelsinger. Yeah.
Gelsinger? Yeah.
Whatever it is, expects the losses to deepen over 2024. So on the bright side, they do expect to have a gradual decrease of losses to a break-even point at about 2027. So it'll be worse by the end of this year.
So this isn't a spiral, as far as we know. They're not spiraling.
No. So that's where it gets. This is into the information about it. They made a lot of expenses by building factories to get out of TSMC and other manufacturers so that they can make their own chips.
So they're moving from production to order fabs to in-house fabs.
In-house production.
Yeah.
Which will make them, so hopefully they're going to be decreasing their outsourcing from TSMC and others from 30% of their outsourcing to 20%. So they'll be making 80% of their stuff by themselves. Hopefully, by them making that production choice, the rates will increase and the profit margins will increase, which in turn hopefully will make the prices cheaper in the future, but we all know how that happens. So,
They always say that. They've always said that.
well, they didn't say that. That was something I had to throw in there. Hopefully.
Oh, okay. So you're saying hopefully. This isn't from them.
No.
Okay.
Hopefully they're going to make
I was
it
going to say,
cheaper.
I thought that they said that. I'm like,
No.
they always say that.
So they said that they're trying to make their production rates and profit margins higher, but I said that hopefully that will make their prices less expensive.
I think
it would be a good move.
What I would
their
say
prices.
to that note is that I think that Battle Mage and the entire existence of the ARC division is just showing that Intel does, in a sense, still have a heart for the average consumer.
Yes.
Whereas someone like NVIDIA, you can notice that as they've kind of skyrocketed out of our market, their appreciation for our market is completely declining.
It's completely it's
at this point it's
gone.
bone dry. I mean, they'll release the same thing, whereas Intel is at least trying.
So here's the thing. This is Intel's Foundry Services, which is the CPU production division. So this has nothing to do with their graphics cards or anything.
It's a separate...
This is sheerly a $7 billion loss in the CPU department alone. And their revenue went from $27.5 billion to $18.9 billion in their CPU division alone.
I realize that. My point being is that
I know.
at least
the heart is there. They're where
I was going with that is that because Battle Mage will inevitably have to a degree based on what this is saying, some of the Battle Mage products will be designed in Intel fabs.
Yeah.
This might be a forward like forward-thinking approach to try to keep Battle Mage as the consumer's cheaper graphics card of choice without it being a net loss to sell it.
I certainly hope so.
Because I like where Battle Mage is sitting right now based on what I'm seeing about it, and I liked where Arc fell. Obviously, it had its shortcomings with the driver development and maturity, but where it fell on the price scale, the A750 is a great option right now.
So what I have to say about that is there's always going to be growing pains, and we've talked about this before, but there's always going to be growing pains when launching an entirely new and different product. And the way that they grew out of that initial stage was amazing to me.
I was going to say, on that note, it's remarkable how quickly and in stride they're getting out of the predicament they were in.
And it also shows how amazing their hardware production team was too, because you can just see how amazing the product grew into the...
Yeah, it was amazing how much headroom they left themselves. That was the part that always surprised me, was every 3 to 4 months.
So we'll say the first part, like the initial launch, was quite bad because of it wasn't able to work with backwards compatibility with the what do you call it?
It was DirectX, the old versions of DirectX.
Yeah, so it couldn't work well with that. But as they grew out of that, it just continued to surprise me every time there was something that got fixed.
The thing that I didn't realize at first when like really taking like an initial look at Arc was how much of a power hitter they actually were in productivity.
Yeah.
I should have seen that coming. 16 gigabytes of VRAM on a $300 graphics card is not something to mock.
Yeah.
But when its performance in the game is nearly negligible, you kind of you're used to having that habitual, if it sucks in games, then it must suck at editing and everything else. But as they've improved that driver and really worked on ironing out the inefficiencies and problems, you can see it in the benchmarks: Blender, DaVinci Resolve, Photoshop, Final Cut, if you can even get Final Cut to run on one. Like programs like that, we're also seeing massive uplifts in performance.
Yeah,
and seeing that,
it's been an encouragement because we kind of saw them going downhill, and especially because they had a failed launch at the beginning. That was really discouraging.
The laptop soft launch that did.
Yeah,
it was a paper launch.
I was very disappointed because I thought we were going to see a huge uprising, but when we lost that, I kind of had a reservation when they said they were going to launch this GPU line. But then afterwards, like, you know how I felt. I was saying, I'm not touching that yet.
What we both said was we'll try it for testing, but we don't think this is going to be around for long term. But Intel's committed to it.
Yeah,
so it's very,
because they're committed. We've seen.
And then from this topic, the thing that sticks out to me is that as they improve that margin, and your hope of them keeping the prices cheaper, I feel like Intel might partially be making this decision because their CPUs are they're reaching that point where they need to make changes or they're going to be left behind. But then they have these GPUs that, from what I've learned about Arc since its release, they cost a lot to make, but then also ended up having to basically sell them at a loss because of the fact that they just have no market presence whatsoever and they have no choice. Making a decision like this to make your production in-house, make it cheaper and make it quicker because you don't have to wait in line at TSMC because everybody's flocking to them right now. You can keep everything lower, which means that Battle Mage in the subsequent generations of that line will hopefully have a steady release schedule in future and not end up being something that kind of fades away in the next 2 to 3 years. So it's really encouraging.
Yeah. So do you want to
Sure. So still Intel. So this is one that's based on what we've seen about the Qualcomm chip. This one is going to be a little bit of a not as intriguing.
Yeah.
However, it's still important to note and make this topic on because it's going to be what we're going to be dealing with just for the foreseeable future from Core. It's the Lunar Lake Core 5. So obviously the name's different. I'm not a fan. The model name that I'm discussing here is called the 240V. I read the article and misread that as 240 volts because I'm a human being that makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And I assumed that the article was talking about specifications only, but come to find out, that's the engineering sample's current working title is the 240V. I don't know what HV and all of those other designations stand for off the top of my head. I always have to look them up.
I guess we're going to have to plug into a dryer outlet now.
Yep. Yeah.
Now we are officially making it so you can only run off of the panel.
So
No
our
more
liquid cooling
outlets.
systems now are going to just be straight from cars. We are going to be foregoing the 360 millimeter AIO.
You can now only drive your computer off of solar panels, an entire solar field to be exact.
The only way to stay economically friendly and run Intel 2025 edition. Anyway, so what we know about it, it's completely leaked. So all of this stuff is subject to change. None of this is set in stone. It's an engineering sample that was tested. We have literally no idea what this thing will turn into. What we do know as of right now, because we're, I guess, somewhere roughly 50% into its development cycle, so it's half baked. In the literal definition of the word, it's an 8-core design. That's what we know. So it's a 50-50 split, like most chips have been recently for their lower end. 4 P cores, 4 E cores. The P cores are of a generation called Lion Cove.
Okay.
Don't know what that means yet. And
Lunar
then,
Lake.
yeah, I mean that's iterative, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. But Lion Cove, not quite as sure onto what that is. I might add a comment, like a pinned comment, if I figure out what that is.
All right.
Skymont is the generation designation for the E cores, and then not much else information is known about it, except that it comes with a Battlemage XE2 iGPU. They're saying it's going to tout massive overall performance gains, especially in gaming, but because the reports on Twitter didn't really give anything direct about what games were tested, if any, and what benchmarks were used, if any, we're all going to have to wait to see its real world performance.
You know what the boost clock and stuff is on there?
Yeah, I do. So it's 210 for base,
Okay.
310 for boost,
Oh,
as of right now. So this is the lowest i5 you can get, as far as I know, and it seems bad, but it's a laptop GPU. So this makes a little bit more sense.
yeah, it does.
But no, based on Intel's track record with power efficiency, it could be a burner.
Well, we'll see. With clock speeds that low, they might be trying something new. Because
could be.
usually they have massive clock speeds, like upwards of 4 to 5 gigahertz, even with laptop cores.
This might be
So-
like the new equivalent to what you would get in like a MacBook.
I can't wait to see.
We'll see.
Because if we can get some good efficiency out of these, maybe they're going to be moving towards something new in the future.
Now, we know that it's not a 240 volt CPU, but I don't know the power draw.
Listen, if
I
it
don't
was,
know.
it would actually make sense with their
Listen.
with their current efficiency. We're drawing 900 watts.
They just let the engineering team out of their cage for April 1st, and this is the result. So, yeah, like I said, pre-production engineering sample.
Yep.
All of this is subject to change. Based on what I've seen with other pre-production samples that have been tested, these clocks are probably a little bit low. So that boost, actually, they might end up finding a way to improve this by the end of its production cycle.
Sometimes it really depends because they either choose the worst engineering sample for the first test so that they're undershooting it and they give you something better at the end, or they choose the best to try
to
talk up their components. But
I have none of that information on hand. I will post the screenshots of the leak and the account that posted them. So if you would like to go find them for yourself, find some more information, that'll be also overlaid on the YouTube. You should definitely go check that out. It's the best way to watch the podcast. If you care to watch the podcast. But yeah, we offer the chapter markers. We have some indications of what topics we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like I've mentioned, any information that we get from elsewhere that has some sort of graph, that'll be overlaid for you. So feel free to check that out. And with that, that is everything we have for today. So thank you so much for watching and tuning in. If you would like to check out our products, our custom builds, please visit our website at www.gamereadytech.com. And then from there, you should definitely check out the Discord. That's all.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.